All right, good morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock right on the dot, so we're going to get started. Thanks for taking time out of your Friday morning to be here. Just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. In this webinar format, you'll be able to see and hear me, but I will not be able to see and hear you. This webinar is being recorded and will be sent to all attendees after today's session, along with the survey link and a copy of the slides. We appreciate all feedback as it lets us know what we're doing well and what we can improve for future webinars. Please place all questions you have during the presentation in the Q&A box in the bottom toolbar. This is the one that looks like two chat boxes next to one another, and they'll be addressed at the end. So my name is April Myerscough. I am the Public Programs Coordinator at Florida Humanities. I am the point person for the Florida Talks program. Today I'm going to cover information about Florida Humanities if you're new to us, information about the program, how to apply and steps to host a program once you've been approved, some frequently asked questions, and of course your Q&A at the end. So if you're not sure who Florida Humanities is, or you're new to our organization, Florida Humanities is the state affiliate of the National Endowment of the Humanities and was established in 1973. We are primarily a grant-making and grant-distributing organizations to assist cultural organizations across the state to develop and execute public humanities programming. Our mission is to preserve, promote, and share the history, literature, culture, and personal stories that offer Floridians a better understanding of themselves, their communities, and their state. So the Florida Talks program is the companion public program to Florida Humanities Speakers Bureau. Florida Talks offers nonprofit organizations statewide a simple way to bring speakers from the Bureau to their communities in a simple and flexible way. Speakers present Florida's history, heritage, and culture through historical and contemporary lenses. There are over 30 high-quality authors, scholars, journalists, historians, and storytellers on our Bureau and more than 60 new and returning programs. All programs are suitable for out-of-school adults ages 18 and older and include a 30 to 45-minute presentation along with time for audience questions. And the good news is all of these programs can be held virtually or in person. So Florida Humanities provides several benefits to host organizations for Florida Talks programs. We pay a standard pre-negotiated honorarium of $300 directly to each speaker. We also provide templated marketing materials and comprehensive media kits that include press releases, sample social media text, and tips to advertise your programs. Florida Humanities also has surveys for both virtual and in-person programs and sends compiled responses to the organization and the speaker once the program is complete. And lastly, organizations receive complimentary copies of our magazine forum to distribute at in-person programs. Florida Humanities encourages all Florida Talks programs be free and open to the public. Florida Talks events cannot be closed or member-only events such as parts of board meetings or conferences. Florida Talks events also cannot be part of a fundraising event. If you do charge an attendance fee, as we know some programs do, it must be minimal and non-prohibitive for your immediate area. So you might be wondering who can host these programs. All in-state organizations constituted for nonprofit purposes are eligible to apply and host Florida Talks programs. These include nonprofit organizations, local municipalities like city and county governments, cultural and civic organizations, and educational entities like colleges and universities. Eligibility for all organizations are confirmed through a GuideStar charity check done by Florida Humanities to verify 501c status. As well, all organizations must have an active unique entity ID or SAM number. SAM numbers are 12-digit alphanumeric codes and replace DUNS numbers, if that's what you're familiar with, in April 2022 by the federal government. If your organization had a DUNS number, it has been automatically replaced without any additional steps required by you. If you don't have a SAM number yet, we have instructions on our website on how to look yours up or obtain one. The most common hosts of our Florida Talks programs are libraries and library systems, museums, and historical societies. Of course, your organization does not have to fall into any of those categories to host a Florida Talks program, but those are where most of our Florida Talks programs happen. So all applications to host a Florida Talks program must be submitted at least 6 weeks before the intended program date or dates. The application process encourages you to apply and host one program at a time. However, organizations may apply to host multiple speakers, up to 3, under one application if all of those programs will occur within 30 days. This option is if your organization would like to host a series of speakers for a Heritage Month, celebration, or an internal month-long event or theme, such as for Black History Month, Women's History Month, etc. Organizations will be notified within 14 days of submission whether they have been approved or denied. There is no limit to how many speakers an organization can host per calendar year. You can have other open Florida Humanities grants and be eligible to host a Florida Talk program, but your organization cannot have more than one active Florida Talks application open at a time. One has to be completely closed out before you begin another. While the application process is quite simple, we estimate it takes an organization about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. Not all applications are approved. Funding for this program is limited, and not all eligible organizations may be approved for support for each application. To support organizations of all sizes and capacities, Florida Humanities offers up to $250 in travel reimbursement funding for in-person programs to organizations with operating budgets of $250,000 or less. Organizations must request travel reimbursement in their initial application, and it is distributed upon receipt and processing of a final report. Travel receipts are required for some line items. Eligible travel reimbursement line items include mileage, tolls and parking, per diem, lodging, auto rental, and an other line item that must be described and will be approved on a case-by-case basis. Be advised that this $250 maximum is for each application, not each individual program, if you are hosting more than one program in one application. So I'm now going to cover the steps on how to apply to host a Florida Talks program and then what happens once your application has been approved. If you have any questions about anything I've discussed so far, please place them in the Q&A box and they will be addressed at the end of the presentation. So the first step to apply is to browse the program directory and select a program or programs that you would like to host at your organization. If you're familiar with our previous iterations of our directories that we have, be advised that we have changed it to be a program-focused directory, not speaker-focused. We have a list of the speakers available as a PDF on our website, but that list doesn't include contact information or complete details and descriptions of the program. It's just information about the speaker and the programs they offer. Simply select the program that catches your eye and scroll down to the bottom of the program page to the speaker's contact information. We ask that you contact the speakers directly by telephone or email and arrange all event details before applying. Once you have confirmed participation of the speaker and the details of the program, you can begin an application through our online application portal. Directions to create an account are available on the login page. Alternatively, you can use existing credentials if your organization has an account with Florida Humanities. We cannot reset any information for you, but there is a reset password button on the homepage of the application homepage, and I'll show that in a few slides. So once you've applied, wait for a decision email from Florida Humanities staff. Applications are processed within 2 weeks of submission, and not all applications may be approved as funding is limited. We advise that you do not advertise the program until you have received notification from Florida Humanities, so please hold off adding it to event calendars or putting it on social media once you know you've been approved. Notification is sent to the project director through the online application portal, and I'll go over who the project director is in just a few minutes. Once you've been notified of approval, confirm details again with your speakers, including any travel costs if the program is in person. We have a host organization and speaker sample agreement document available for organizations to use as solidification of terms on our Florida Talks homepage under resources for hosted organizations. Again, this document is only a sample and it does not solidify any agreements between the organization and Florida Humanities. Organizations are required to submit an event listing form to capture all the details of the program, including a date, time, location, and registration link if applicable. As well, this is where your organization can request survey cards for in-person programs. This event listing form is due within 7 days of your approval of hosting your program and is available on the Florida Talks webpage, again, under the resources for host organizations. After your approval, you can begin advertising your program. The approval email includes a Google Drive link to a Florida Humanities created marketing kit that includes our logos, credit lines, the templated social media text, a press release, a guide on how to advertise your program, and speaker headshots. We recommend you use these documents to help advertise your program, but it is not required. However, use of the 2 logos and credit lines are required on all digital and print marketing materials. So here's a sample of some of what is in our marketing kit available to host organizations. If you also have any questions about marketing as a host organization, you can reach out to our communications director, LaShonda Curry. Her email is available on our website and on the screen here, and I will put it in the chat once we reach the Q&A portion of our presentation. As well, if you are approved and receive to host and you receive the Google Drive link, her contact information is available within the marketing kit as well. So before your event occurs, we recommend testing all necessary technology, AV equipment, and the digital meeting platform before the event. Florida Humanities does not provide technology support for Florida Talks programs. After the program has concluded, distribute and collect the Florida Humanities audience evaluation surveys. If the program is virtual, we have a digital survey link accessible on the Florida Talks homepage. If it is in person, we mail each organization survey cards based on the number that you stated in your event listing form, as seen on the right here. Survey cards can be sent to the address listed on the website once your program is finished, and you can send it in a bundle like an envelope or package. And those survey responses for both digital and in-person programs are compiled and sent to the speaker and organization upon receipt of your final report. So speaking of a final report, organizations must complete a final report within 7 days of the final program. Final reports are accessible through the online application portal. If you are hosting multiple programs under one application, the final report will be due within 7 days of the last program date, and all of those programs are covered in one final report. So say you're hosting the 3 programs in 30 days model, you only have to do one final report that covers all 3 programs. If you have requested and have been approved for travel reimbursement, the form is available through the final report as a downloadable link and looks like this image on the right here. Remember to attach and/or send any relevant or required receipts with the travel reimbursement form. All of the travel reimbursement line items that require receipts are listed on the form and on our website. Please only complete this top half of the form here, as this bottom section is for Florida Humanities staff only. So now that I have gone over the hosting process, I'm going to go through parts of the application itself. If you have any questions about what I have discussed so far, please place them in the Q&A box to be addressed at the end of the webinar. So the first step to apply is to log into the online application portal available on the website. If you have an account already, simply use the same credentials. If you need to make an account, click the Create New Account gray button here. We have instructions available to create an account on the gray box over here. You can also reset your password under the login buttons here. And this application can be saved and completed later if you need to. So once you have logged in, this is what your home screen will look like. You may have to scroll to find it, the Florida Talks application, as all of our grant opportunities are organized alphabetically, so it may not be the, may not be the top one at when you apply. To preview the application, click this preview button on the bottom left, and to start an application, click the blue button here on the top right. The first section on the application is to identify the host organization information. The host organization is the organization that is coordinating, organizing, and presenting the programs and is the primary contact with Florida Humanities. Be advised that the host organization and the location for the program may be different, such as your organization may be a historical society, but you're hosting the program at your local community center. You will also need to provide your organization's federal ID number, which is a 9-digit number, 2 digits, a dash, and 7 digits, and a SAM number, which I explained previously. We have instructions on our website and a link within our application on how to obtain and access your organization's SAM number. And I personally came across a very helpful video, which is step-by-steps and shows you the screen on how to get a SAM number. And I'll share that with you as well when I send out this webinar link. You will also need to provide information for a project director. The project director is a staff member, board member, or volunteer affiliated with the host organization that will oversee the program or programs and is the liaison between Florida Humanities and the organization. All communication regarding the program is sent to the project director, including notification of approval, and all of this is mostly done through email. Please select someone at your organization that can be a reliable contact if the project director is not the person completing the application. Having a project director is required to be a host organization, as we need somebody who can be the primary contact between your organization and us and about the program and any information. So there is also a section of questions about travel reimbursement. First, select yes or no if you are applying for a travel reimbursement. If you select yes, another question will pop up. You will need to provide your organization's most recent operating budget, and Florida Humanities corroborates this budget through the GuideStar charity check for eligibility that I mentioned previously. You will have to provide an estimated amount of travel reimbursement and those details using the rates described in the questions instruction box here. Again, this amount may not exceed $250, and what you include, of course, is only an estimation. If your organization is approved to host and receive travel reimbursement, we recognize this amount may change once the program occurs, and that can be reflected and those changes can be reflected in your final report. So if you're a repeat partner or familiar with our work, you may have noticed I have not mentioned cost share and how that factors in. So we don't ask about cost share anymore in the application, just in the final report. There is no longer a minimum cost share or match required. However, an amount is still required. Everything spent, used, or done in support of the program has a dollar value. We recommend tabulating cost share totals as you go to make the final report easier, such as logging hours of staff and volunteers and keeping receipts of anything you purchase for the program. Cost share can be accounted for as remaining travel costs, marketing costs like printing or paid social media ads, staff and volunteer time, digital meeting platform subscriptions like Zoom and Microsoft Teams, refreshments for attendees, and venue and equipment rental if needed. The federal rate for volunteer hours is available in the final report, which is how we calculate dollar amount for volunteer hours. And the list I mentioned and the one that's on the screen isn't comprehensive by any means to tabulate and accrue cost share. I should mention that if you are approved for travel reimbursement, you cannot count that reimbursement towards your cost share. While we don't have a minimum cost share in place at the moment, That may change in the future. We strongly recommend you have a cost share minimum of $300 to reflect the speaker honorarium that Florida Humanities pays. I can say as well, cost share tabulates and accrues much more quickly than you would think, especially when you consider staff and volunteer time going towards executing the program. So I'm now going to go over some frequently asked questions that you may have. If you have questions at this time, please place them in the Q&A box, but some of these questions may be answered shortly. So I'm going to go around these squares to answer all of these questions. Also, all of these frequently asked questions are available on the Florida Talks webpage too. So to address this top question here, can I apply for a Florida Talks program with a speaker who is not on the directory? You cannot apply for a Florida Talks program with a speaker who is not in the directory. If you are interested in hosting somebody outside the Florida Humanities Speakers Bureau, you can apply. We have a couple of other grant opportunities where you can apply to host them. To address this second question here, can I apply to host even if I have another Florida Humanities grant open? And yes, you can apply to host even if you have another Florida Humanities grant open, like community project grants or greater good humanities and academia, anything else that we offer at the moment. You cannot, however, have more than one Florida Talks application open at a time. As well, all of these applications and projects must be in good standing for your application to be approved. So to address this bottom question here, what does Florida Humanities provide my organization, and do you publicize our event? Florida Humanities pays speakers a standard non-negotiable rate of $300 for both in-person and virtual programs. The rate is the same regardless of the method of program delivery. We also provide templated marketing materials and a media kit that I showed before, audience evaluation tools, and compiled responses from those surveys, and copies of our forum magazine for in-person programs. We do publicize the event on our digital events calendar, which is why you have to submit an event listing form. And we may feature your event on our social media pages and in our digital newsletters that go out 3 times a month to ensure a statewide reach beyond just your organization's area. So address this top question here, how many speakers can I host? Organizations may host between 1 and 3 speakers per application. However, if your organization is interested in hosting more than 1 speaker in one application, all programs must occur within 30 days of one another. This model is to support organizations hosting series around a theme or to support a heritage or celebration month. To address this this middle question here, when do I have to apply to host? Applications must be submitted at least 6 weeks before the first program date to be considered eligible. However, you can apply much earlier than that if you wish. It's just a 6-week minimum. So to address this bottom question here, why would my application be denied? Applications may be denied for a number of reasons, including but not limited to that your organization having a Florida Talks application open already, your organization failed to submit a final report for a previous Florida Talks program, so technically it's still open. Your submitted application is incomplete or missing required information. Your proposed programs reach a limited audience as we give preference to events that are free and open to the public. And lastly, your application may be denied if this application was submitted less than 6 weeks before the program date. While we make every effort to get as many programs to happen as possible, we do have limited funding for this program, and we make every effort to support programs statewide. However, applications may be denied if funding is limited or if it is no longer available. To address this top question here, what are my responsibilities as a host organization? Host organizations are responsible for all other costs associated with hosting a Florida Talks program, such as the speaker's travel expenses, venue rental if you need to, promotional costs, and any other programmatic costs. You must also complete an event listing form within 7 days of approval, and then a final report, which is due 7 days within 7 days of your final program if you're hosting more than one. To address this question here, are there any limits to how many programs my organization can host in a calendar year? There is no limit to how many programs your organization can host in a calendar year. We strongly suggest you to pick a variety of programs throughout the year and not book the program multiple times. Of course, we have several to choose from, but there are no limit to how many you can host. To address this bottom question here, can my organization charge an admission fee? Florida Humanities encourages all Florida Talks programs to be free and open to the public. If your organization does charge an attendance fee to the program, it must be minimal and non-prohibitive for your immediate area. And lastly, can we record a program? Recording permissions do vary from speaker to speaker, as some contain copyrighted materials or just up to their personal preference. And recording permissions should be confirmed before the program happens, including where the program will be housed, such as on a social media page or a YouTube page, and how long that program will remain visible to the public. So if you've watch this presentation and think that this program may not be quite right for your organization at the moment, not to worry. We have several other funding opportunities open at this time. I encourage you to visit the website on the slide, floridahumanities.org/funding-opportunities to browse all open opportunities. I also invite you to sign up for our digital newsletters at floridahumanities.org/sign-up to receive the latest information about our funding opportunities and events. This is the best way to keep in the loop of what we're working on, and you'll be the first to be notified when another funding opportunity goes live or new events come up. So that is it from me. I'm going to leave my contact information up while I address your questions. If you have any questions, please place them in the Q&A box and I will address them now. I'm going to start with the Q&A box. So I have a question here. Are there any travel reimbursement funds available to organizations with an operating budget above $250,000? And at the moment, we don't have any travel reimbursement options available for organizations with that budget above that amount, mostly because this is a new kind of redesigned model and we're still testing some things out. We may increase the budget cap in the future to receive travel reimbursement, but for the time being, there isn't anything available for organizations with that budget amount available. So I have a bottom question here. Are volunteers normally paid for their time? And more often than not, no. Sometimes they're paid in refreshments or they receive credit. If they're a student, they receive credit for a class or volunteer hours to receive an award. But we do need to accrue cost share. The federal government does assign volunteer hours like a quote unquote rate, so they can be tracked monetarily even though they aren't paid anything. So the federal rate is $28.54 per hour. We have more information about that on our website, and you can do some browsing online as well. Okay, so I see some questions in the chat box as well. And if we have created an account for other opportunities, is it the same account? Yes, all of Florida Humanities grant opportunities use the same online application portal. So if you have credentials already, you can certainly just log in and the Florida Talks application will be available to you. We have a question as well. How does one become a speaker, and is there an application on your website? That is a great question that I get frequently. We do have an application process available to become a Florida Humanities speaker. We run it about once a year, normally in the late fall to early winter. This year, we anticipate opening it around Thanksgiving and keeping it open through early to mid-January. That was the model we did last year and it worked quite well. So I'd say sign up for our newsletters to find out when that application process opens. And another question I have here, what is a limited audience number? So when we say an audience is limited, we encourage you to have people come that are not just in your immediate area or just members. We don't want these programs to be closed to the public. So if it's a part of a membership event or part of a board meeting, Florida Talks programs should be free and have anybody allowed to come. Oh, and I have another question is here. I believe the volunteer hour increased to $29.95 in April 2022 for the independent sector. Would this be the current figure for cost share? If it has increased, I will have to look into that and we'll of course update the rates online, but we do adhere to the federal rate as we're part of the National Endowment for the Humanities, which is a federal organization. So at the moment, we still use the 2854, but I will speak with our team and see if it has increased. And thank you for the alert if it has, because that's fantastic information that it has gone up even more. All right, well, I don't see any other questions at this time, and in courtesy to your time as well, because I know, oh, one more I see. Are speakers from outside Florida also available? At the moment, we do not have any speakers who reside outside of Florida to participate. All organizations that apply do have to be an in-state organization or have a branch in state. So all of the state, all of our speakers at the moment are at least part-time Florida residents. All right, and one more here. If organizations are collaborating, how does that impact the budget of organization threshold? So I would advise when you apply, if you want to host an in-person program and be eligible for travel reimbursement, select one organization to be the host and mention somewhere in your application. There is a narrative question that I didn't mention, but is quite simple to go take a look at. Mention that you have a collaborator and such as that. If you're interested in receiving travel reimbursement, again, I would apply, and two organizations are hosting the program. I would advise to just use one as the host. Mention somewhere in the application that you're using a collaborator or what we call a nonprofit partner. All right, so I don't see any other questions at the moment, but if you do have questions, if you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. This is my contact information up here. Email is the best way to get a hold of me as we work in a hybrid model, so I'm not always able to answer the telephone or respond to telephone messages right away. We also have a lot of information available on our website. I recommend checking it out because your question may be answered through the content on our website. And thank you for taking time out of your Friday morning to be here. This webinar was recorded and it will be shared in full with all attendees after the session, along with a slide deck of what I presented today. Again, any questions, please reach out. Email is the best way to get a quick response, as it may take me several days to return any telephone messages. Thank you again and have a great weekend.